Hare Krishna. So today there's going to be in a few moments via Zoom satsang program Balaram. Since Sunday is Balaram Purnima. I'm just preparing for that. I did that a bit early. Try to put on the microphone for your benefit. Those of you who may tune in to my Facebook page to see this. I'm not so professional. That goes without saying. Meantime, okay, so Kirtan is going on the Zoom meeting, and when I get the cue, I will begin. So please bear with me. Those of you who are watching me online, try and get this camera in a little better position. And that is better. And that's a little better. Okay. Slightly, I'd like you to see Krishna and Arjuna behind me. Radha Kalachandji is going on. It's a group of Dallas devotees who are participating via Zoom. And the time has come for the lecture to begin. Well, time was 7:30 here in the evening, and that's passed. But you know, these things are there. Kirtan from the car. And Hare Krishna. Wow. I dug out from Srimad Bhagavatam a number of pastimes of Lord Balaram, but Mangalacharan, I didn't. Oh, there must be a Mangalachara mantra. I didn't think of it. But wow, it's Jai Baladev Purnima, Jayo Jaya. I don't know what to say. I'll just quickly, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanaham Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, Rama is Balaram. Before I go any further, I should inform you and your group that I will not be present for Krishna Janmashtami in Dallas. We're going to New Talavan, where the Bhumi Puja will be done for a new temple. 29th. And I was earlier invited to New Orleans by Rohini Nandan Prabhu, a devotee who used to be in Juhu Temple many years ago. And he called me up and invited me. So I'm doing both over there. Coming back on 6th of September and on 8th of September, go to California for 2 weeks. And then we come back on 20th September and we leave to the East Coast on 25th or 26th. Hasn't been decided yet. We have to vacate our present residence on 26th September. So we can still have this type of online association occasionally. And hopefully I'll be present in Ahmedabad in February for the auspicious occasion of your daughter's wedding ceremony. Well, man proposes, God disposes. I hope. You never know. You know, I'm an old man. So, of course, I hope that, you know, I'll be able to participate. So, you know, in Srimad Bhagavatam Dashamaskand, 10th canto, there are a number of pastimes of Baladev. So, reading them all won't be possible. We don't have enough time in this program to actually go over all of the pastimes. But I think we can recap. If we break, what is it, 45 minutes you want me to speak? Let me see. Totally 1 hour, and that includes questions. And besides Zoom, I'm also live broadcasting this on my Facebook page, and a few people will see it there. And even on YouTube. I doubt many people will see it there, but anyway. So let's get into Balaram's pastimes. I think the first exclusive pastime, of course, the birth of Krishna and Balaram is also, I mean, at the same time, I wasn't prepared to discuss the birth of Balaram, but we know that Balaram was born from the womb of Rohini, who was a co-wife with my God, Vasudeva and Devaki. So Vasudeva had 9 wives, and one wife is Rohini, one wife is Devaki. But then Devaki and Vasudeva were in prison. So how is it possible that Rohini bore the child? That is the question. But it's transcendental. And Balaram and Krishna are non-different. Although one Supreme Person, God, Bhagavan, in 2 bodies. So in the 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavat Dashamaskanda, 10th canto, there's the story of killing the demon Pralambasura. And I have that Krishna book, Prabhupada's translation of the Dashamaskanda, 10th canto, in storybook form in English, which has been translated into many languages. And so here it says there was a forest fire that Krishna swallowed, which was in the previous chapter. And Krishna and Balaram were enjoying life in Vrindavan in the midst of the cowherd boys and girls. So this was the Bal Leela, the childhood pastimes of Krishna. And it became summer. Now in India, there are 6 seasons. Here, there usually we count 4, right? Winter, spring, summer, autumn, and then again winter, spring. But in India, they count 6. There's a rainy season, which is not counted here. So that is just before, that's just after summer. Vasant, Shishir, what is the summer? Shishir is winter. I'm forgetting summer. I know Vasant. Grishma, thank you. Grishma. Grishma is summer. Vasant, spring. And then autumn. My God, how am I forgetting this? Sharada. Sharada Ritu. Now, after autumn, again, Shishir. No, there's one I'm missing. Well, the rain, Vrishti. Vrishti, there's another word for that. Ritu. Anyway. Excuse me. So here it says, I have to take this Jeshti mud. Summer is not appreciated because of excessive heat. But in Vrindavan, everyone was pleased because the summer there appeared like spring. This was possible only because Krishna and Balaram, who are the controllers of even Brahma and Shiva, were residing there. So it says in Vrindavan there were many falls which were always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over, the forest always looks very green and beautiful. So this description is given. So it says that once while the boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon, Rakshasa, of the name Pralambasura, entered their company desiring to kidnap both Balaram and Krishna. Although Krishna was playing the part of a cowherd boy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could understand everything, past, present, and future. So when Pralambasura entered their company, Krishna began to think how to kill the demon. But externally, he received him as a friend. "Oh, my dear friend," he said, "it is very good that you have come to take part in our pastimes." Krishna then called all his friends and ordered them, "Now we shall play in pairs. We shall challenge one another in pairs." With this proposal, all the boys assembled together. Some of them took the side of Krishna and some of them took the side of Balaram. They arranged to play in duel. The defeated members in duel fighting had to carry the victorious members on their backs, as a horse carries its master. They began playing at the same time, tended the cows as they proceeded through the Bandiravan forest. So Van means forest, and the name of the forest was Bandira. Bandira. The party of Balaram, accompanied by Sridama and Vrishabha, came out victorious, and Krishna's party had to carry them on their backs through the Bandiravan forest. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, being defeated, had to carry Sridama on his back, and Bhadrasena carried Vrishabha. Imitating their play, Pralambasura, who appeared there as a cowherd boy, carried Balaram on his back. Pralambasura was the greatest of the demons, and he had calculated that Krishna was the most powerful of the cowherd boys. In order to avoid the company of Krishna, Pralambasura carried Balaram far away. The demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful, but he was carrying Balarama, who is compared to a mountain. Therefore, he began to feel the burden, and thus he assumed his real form. So from this, we can understand that the demon was able to change his bodily form. So this is wonderful. We haven't seen it, but we accept that it's true. So there are other such wonderful things in the Puranas, and we accept them. Now, someone may say, well, because we haven't seen it, it must not be true. But there's many things we cannot see, and this was 5,000 years ago. And so today we don't see these demons who can change their form. So here it says that when Pralambasura appeared in his real feature, he was decorated with a golden helmet and earrings and looked just like a cloud with lightning carrying the moon. Balaram was white, Krishna is black. So Balaram observed the demon's body expanding up to the limits of the clouds, his eyes dazzling like blazing fire and his mouth flashing with sharpened teeth. At first, Balaram was surprised by the demon's appearance, and he began to wonder, how is it that all of a sudden this carrier has changed in every way? But with a clear mind, he could quickly understand that he was being carried away from his friends by a demon who intended to kill him. Immediately, he struck the demon with his strong fist, just as the king of the heavenly planet strikes a mountain with his thunderbolt. Stricken by the fist of Balaram, the demon fell down dead, just as a snake with a smashed head, and blood poured from his mouth. When the demon fell, he made a tremendous sound, and it sounded as if a great hill were falling upon being struck by the thunderbolt of King Indra. All the boys then rushed to the spot. Astonished by the ghastly scene, they began to praise Balaram with the words, "Well done, well done." All of them then embraced Balaram with great affection, thinking that he had returned from death, and they offered their blessings and congratulations. All the demigods in the heavenly planets became very satisfied and showered flowers on the transcendental body of Balaram, and they offered their blessings and congratulations for his having killed the great demon Pralambasura. So we don't see the devatas, the demigods these days, showering flowers. But again, we accept that it's true because it's described in the Puranas. We also accept the story that Balaram was all-powerful Anksha avatar. He was Krishna in another form. And just by hitting this great demon whose body expanded all the way up to the heavens, to the clouds, With one blow, he killed him. So that's the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from the 18th chapter, let's move to the 44th chapter, the killing of Kamsa. And here Prabhupada describes in his Krishna book, after Kamsa's wrestlers expressed their determination, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the killer of Madhu, confronted Chanura, and Lord Balaram, the son of Rohini, confronted Mushtika. Krishna and Chanura and then Balaram and Mushtika locked themselves hand to hand, leg to leg, and began to press against the other with a view of coming out victorious. So Krishna and Balaram were like small boys, 16 years old, and these two massive wrestlers were fighting with them. So it says that the fighting increased as they pushed each other from one place to another. One captured the other and threw him to the ground, and another rushed from the back to the front of another and tried to overcome him with a hold. The fighting increased step by step. There was picking up, dragging, and pushing, and then the legs and hands were locked together. All the arts of wrestling were perfectly exhibited by the parties as each tried his best to defeat his opponent. So there was the assembly of Kamsa, which was described in the previous chapter. And, there were different things that happened. And then finally, Krishna and Balaram are wrestling with these two huge wrestlers who were much bigger and stronger looking than they were. So that's described now in the next paragraph. But the audience in the wrestling arena was not very much satisfied because the combatants did not appear to be equally matched. They considered Krishna and Balaram to be mere boys before Chanura and Mushtika, who were the strongest wrestlers, as solid as stone. Being compassionate and favoring Krishna and Balaram, the many ladies in the audience began to talk as follows. Dear friends, there is injustice here. Another said, even in front of the king, this wrestling is going on between incompatible sides. The ladies had lost their sense of enjoyment. They could not encourage the fighting between the strong and the weak. Mushtika and Chanura are just like thunderbolts, as strong as great mountains. And Krishna and Balaram are two delicate boys of very tender age. The principle of justice has already left this assembly. Persons who are aware of the civilized principles of justice will not remain to watch this unfair match. Those taking part in watching this wrestling match are not very much enlightened. Therefore, whether they speak or remain silent, they are being subjected to the reactions of sinful activities. Another lady said, don't you see how the face of Lord Balaram has turned especially beautiful? There is a reddish hue on his white face because he is engaged in a tremendous wrestling match with Mushtika. Another lady in the assembly addressed her friend. Dear friend, just how fortunate is the land of Vrindavan, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is present, always decorated with flower garlands and engaged in tending cows along with his brother, Lord Balaram. He is always accompanied by his cowherd boyfriends, and he plays his transcendental flute. The residents of Vrindavan are fortunate to be able to constantly see the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, which are worshipped by great demigods like Lord Shiva and by the goddess of fortune. We cannot estimate how many pious activities were executed by the damsels of Rajabhumi so that they were able to enjoy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by looking upon the unparalleled beauty of his transcendental body. The beauty of the Lord is beyond compare. No one is higher than or equal to him in beauty of complexion or bodily luster. Krishna and Balaram are the reservoir of all kinds of opulence, namely wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. The gopis are so fortunate that they can see and think of Krishna 24 hours a day, beginning from their milking the cows or husking the paddy or churning the butter in the morning. While engaged in cleaning their houses and washing their floors, they are always absorbed in thought of Krishna. This is a very important verse in the Sanskrit. Can I read that? Balaram Krishna Prabhu, Balaram Prasad Prabhu. Can I read the Sanskrit verse? Because it's one of my favorite verses in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, but I didn't open it, but I can get it open pretty quickly. So all of you who are listening, give me a moment. Oh, that's funny. I'm not finding it. Aha, it's number 15. Yadohane vahanane matanopalepa prenkenkanarbaka narbharudito ksanamarjanado gayanti chainam anurakta dhiyo shrukantyo dhanyo vrajastriya urukrama chittayanaha. So this is a praise of the ladies of Vrindavan. Even though they were absorbed in household duties, village affairs, they were always thinking of Krishna. So Krishna and Balaram. So a little ahead, when Lord Krishna, the super soul of every living being, understood that the ladies in the assembly were anxious for him, he decided not to continue wrestling, but to kill the wrestlers immediately. The parents of Krishna and Balaram, namely Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, Vasudeva, and Devaki, so all are considered the parents, were also anxious because they did not know the unlimited strength of their children. Lord Balaram was fighting with the wrestler Mushtika in the same way that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was fighting and wrestling with Chanura. Lord Krishna appeared to be cruel to Chanura, and he immediately struck him thrice with his fist. The great wrestler was jolted to the astonishment of the audience. Chanura was killed. Then Mushtika also struck Balaram, and Balaram returned the stroke with great force. Mushtika began to tremble and vomit blood. Distressed, he gave up his vital force and fell down as a tree in a hurricane. After the two wrestlers were killed, a wrestler named Kuta came forward. Lord Balaram immediately caught him in his left hand and killed him nonchalantly. A wrestler named Shala came forward. There's some noise coming. Someone needs to mute themselves. Okay. Thank you. So it says, Krishna cracked his head with a kick. A wrestler named Toshala came forward and was killed in the same way. Thus, all the great wrestlers were killed by Krishna and Balaram, and the remaining wrestlers fled from the assembly out of fear for their lives. All the cowherd friends of Krishna and Balaram approached them and congratulated them with great pleasure. While trumpets sounded and drums were beaten, the leg bells on the feet of Krishna and Balaram tinkled. So after this, Krishna kills Kamsa. So I'll skip to the next pastime. This is not an exclusive Balaram pastime. Krishna and Balaram together killed the wrestlers, and then Krishna kills Kamsa. In the same chapter, there is more about Balaram. So here, I'll read this one paragraph. Kamsa had 8 brothers, headed by Kanka, and all of them were younger than he. And when they learned that their elder brother had been killed, they combined together and rushed towards Krishna in great anger to kill him. Kamsa and his brothers were all Krishna's maternal uncles, brothers of Krishna's mother Devaki. When Krishna killed Kamsa, he killed his maternal uncle, which is against the regulations of Vedic injunctions. Although Krishna is independent of all Vedic injunctions, he violates the Vedic injunctions only in inevitable cases. Kamsa could not be killed by anyone but Krishna. Therefore, Krishna was obliged to kill him. But as far as Kamsa's 8 brothers were concerned, Balaram took charge of killing them. Balaram's mother, Rohini, although the wife of Vasudeva, was not the sister of Kamsa. Therefore, Balaram took charge of killing all of Kamsa's 8 brothers. He immediately took up an available weapon, and in brackets it says most probably the elephant's tusk which he carried, and killed the 8 brothers one after another, just as a lion kills a flock of deer. Krishna and Balaram thus verified the statement that the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in order to give protection to the pious and to kill the impious demons who are always enemies of the demigods. So that is Paritranaya Sadhunam, Vinashaya Chadushkritam, Dharma Sanstapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So it says the demigods from the higher planetary system showered flowers congratulating Krishna and Balaram. Among the demigods were powerful personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and all joined together in showing their jubilation over Kamsa's death. There were beating of drums and showering of flowers from the heavenly planets, and the wives of the demigods danced in ecstasy. Okay, so moving on. Krishna and Balaram were sent to the school of Sandipani by Vasudeva and Devaki. So it says, anyway, I won't read this pastime, but we can recall it briefly, that Krishna and Balaram, after killing Kamsa, went to the Gurukula of Sandipani. It does describe here Krishna and Balaram walking around Mathura, but then, Vasudeva and Devaki said that you didn't have the sanskaras, and then they did the sacred thread ceremony. Gargamuni was sent, and after this Yagnopavit sanskara, they were sent to study Vedas in Ujjain, which was Avanti. So it says that they lived with Sandipani in Avantipur and strictly followed the principles, and they were ideal brahmacharis studying Vedas. And because they were Kshatriyas, Dhanurveda was also taught to them, politics, military science, ethics. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next Balaram pastime. So that is in 61st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam Dashamaskand. So in the middle of the chapter, I'll begin towards, it's a little bit after the middle of the chapter, that the king of Kalinga is Odisha, was a friend of Rukmi, the elder brother of Rukmini, and gave him the ill advice to play chess with Balaram and thus defeat him in a bet. Among Kshatriya kings, gambling on chess was not uncommon. If someone challenged a Kshatriya to play on the chessboard is called Chaturanga Krida in Sanskrit. So the Kshatriya could not refuse the challenge. Sri Balaramji was not a very expert chess player, and this was known to the king of Kalinga. How is that possible if he's Bhagawan? But this was Leela, pastime. This is what Prabhupada has translated from the Dashamaskanda. So Rukmi was advised to retaliate. Excuse me. Against the family members of Krishna by challenging Balaram to play chess. Although not an expert chess player, Sri Balaramji was very enthusiastic in sporting activities. He accepted Rukmi's challenge and sat down to play. Betting was with gold coins, and Balaram first of all challenged with 100 gold coins, then 1,000 gold coins, then 10,000 gold coins. Each time Balaram lost and Rukmi was victorious. Sri Balaram's losing the game was an opportunity for the king of Kalinga to criticize Krishna and Balaram. Thus the king of Kalinga was talking jokingly while purposefully showing his teeth to Balaram. Because Balaram was the loser in the game, he was a little intolerant of their sarcastic, joking words and became somewhat agitated. Excuse me for a moment, a little water. So Rukmi again challenged Balaram and made a bet of 100,000 gold coins. But fortunately, this time Balaram won. Nonetheless, out of cunningness, Rukmi claimed that Balaram was the loser and that he himself had won. Because of this lie, Balaramji became most angry with Rukmi. His agitation was so sudden and great that it appeared like a tidal wave in the ocean on a full moon day. Balaram's eyes are naturally reddish. And when he became agitated and angry, his eyes became more reddish. This time he made a bet of 100 million coins. Again, Balaram was the winner according to the rules of chess, but Rukmi again cunningly claimed that he had won. Rukmi appealed to the princes present, and he especially mentioned the name of the king of Kalinga. During this dispute, there was a voice from the sky, and it announced that for all honest purposes, Balaram was the actual winner of the game. Winner of this game. And that Balaram was being abused, and that the statement of Rukmi that he had won was absolutely false. Wonderful. Haribo. Oh. Anyway. In spite of this divine force, in spite of this divine voice, Rukmi insisted that Balaram had lost. And by his persistence, it appeared that he had death upon his head. Falsely puffed up by the ill advice of his friend, he did not give much importance to the oracle, and he began to criticize Balaramji. He said, "My dear Balaramji, you two brothers, cowherd boys only, may be very expert in tending cows, but how can you be expert in playing chess or shooting arrows on the battlefield? These arts are well known only to the princely order." Hearing this kind of pinching talk by Rukmi and hearing the loud laughter of all the other princes there, Lord Balaram became as agitated as burning cinders. He immediately took his club in his hand and without further talk struck Rukmi on the head. From that one blow, Rukmi fell down immediately and was dead and gone. Thus, Rukmi was killed by Balaram on that auspicious occasion of Aniruddha's marriage, which was described earlier. These things are not very uncommon in Kshatriya society. The king of Kalinga, afraid that he would be the next one attacked, fled from the scene. Before he could escape even a few steps, however, Balaramji immediately captured him, and because the king had always shown his teeth while criticizing Balaram and Krishna, Balaram broke all the king's teeth with his club. The other princes supporting the king of Kalinga and Rukmi were also captured, and Balaram beat them with his club, breaking their legs and hands. They did not try to retaliate, but thought it was wise to run away from the bloody scene. During this strife between Balaram and Rukmi, Lord Krishna did not utter a word, for he knew that if he supported Balaram, Rukmini would be unhappy. And if he said the killing of Rukmi was unjust, then Balaram would be unhappy. Therefore, Lord Krishna was silent on the death of his brother-in-law Rukmi on the occasion of his grandson's marriage. He did not disturb his affectionate relationship with either Balaram or Rukmini. After this, the bride and bridegroom were ceremoniously seated on the chariot, and they started for Dwarka, accompanied by the bridegroom's party. The bridegroom's party was always protected by Lord Krishna, the killer of the Madhu demon. Thus they left Rukmi's kingdom, Bhojakata, and happily started for Dwarka. This is the end of the 61st first chapter of 10th canto. So we have 20 minutes. I don't think I can do everything. There's also Balaram visits Vrindavan, 65th chapter. So this is a Balaram Leela. Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother in Vrindavan. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, he started on a chariot for Vrindavan. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowherd boys and gopis had grown up, but still on arrival, they all embraced him, and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings unto him. They addressed him as Jagadishwara, the Lord of the universe who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that Krishna and Balaram maintain all living entities, and yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Excuse me. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram. What happened? How did that happen? Excuse me. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram and, seating him on their laps, began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted the obeisances of the younger cowherd men. Thus, according to their different ages and relationships, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equals in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them. See, we have 17, 18 minutes left, but these pastimes are very nectarian, and I'm enjoying reading this. We could read the Sanskrit also, but it would take a lot more time. So, since English is the language we're using, just a second. Hey, jara light chalo karo. Beach wala. It's dusk over here. It's getting dark a little. Wait, I can open a little light. I don't know. Does that help? That's much better. So, Let's continue. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the gopis and King Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balaram sat down feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balaram inquired from them about their welfare, and then, since they had not seen him for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with the absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowherds. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and did not desire any personal benefits. And they were all so much in love with him that in his absence, their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balaramji. First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai inquired, "My dear Balaram, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown-up married men with children. In the happiness of family life, do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful King Kamsa has been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and the others who had been harassed have now been relieved. It is also very good news that you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalayavana, who is now dead, and that you are now living in a fortified residence in Dwaraka." When the gopis arrived, Lord Balaram glanced over them with loving eyes, being overjoyed. The gopis who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna and Balaram's absence began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They specifically asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life, surrounded by the enlightened women of Dwarkapuri. Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda and all the other friends with whom he so intimately behaved while in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plans to come here and see his mother Yashoda? And does he remember us gopis who are now pitiably bereft of his company? Krishna may have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwarka. But as far as we are concerned, we still remember him by collecting flowers and sewing them into garlands. When he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying. If only he would come here and accept these garlands we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dasharha, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in great distress, one cannot give up the connection of family members. But although it might be impossible for others, we gave up our fathers, mothers, sisters, and relatives. But then Krishna, without caring a pinch for our renunciation, all of a sudden renounced us and went away. He broke off our intimate relationship without serious consideration and left for a foreign country. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear gopis, please do not worry. The service you have rendered to me is impossible for me to repay. After all, we are women, so how can we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us." Protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, another gopi said, "My dear Balaramji, we are of course village girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwarka? Don't think they are as foolish as we. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwarka are very clever and intelligent. Therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his words." So this goes on, and then, 2-3 other gopis speak. So then Lord Balaram, of course, could understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus treating the gopis very respectfully. He began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that the gopis became satisfied. To keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balaram stayed there continuously for 2 months, namely the months of Chaitra, March, April, and Vaishak, April, May. For those 2 months, he kept himself among the gopis, and he passed every night of them in the forest of Vrindavan to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus, Balaram also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during those 2 months. Since the season was springtime, the breeze on the bank of the Yamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially the flower known as Komudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Yamuna appeared very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balaram enjoyed the company of the gopis there. It's very, this is a very, what do you call it? Enjoyable pastime of Balaram. So I'll continue. The demigod known as Varuna sent his daughter Varuni in the form of liquid honey oozing from the hollows of the trees. Because of this honey, the whole forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey, Varuni, captivated Balaramji. Balaramji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of the Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, all the gopis chanted the glories of Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude. He was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers, and the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness because of this transcendental bliss. Lord Balaram smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared like soothing morning dew. So, continue. While Balaramji was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of the Yamuna. Therefore, he called the Yamuna to come nearby. But the Yamuna neglected the order of Balaramji, considering him intoxicated. Lord Balaram became very displeased at the Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his plowshare. Lord Balaram has 2 weapons, a plow and a club, from which he takes service when they are required. This time he wanted to bring the Yamuna by force, and he took the help of his plow. He wanted to punish the Yamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed the Yamuna, "You wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now, with the help of my plow, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams." When the Yamuna was threatened like this, she became greatly afraid of the power of Balaram and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus, "My dear Balaram, you are the most powerful personality and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forgot your glorious exalted position, but now I have come to my senses, and I remember that you hold all the planetary systems on your head merely by your partial expansion, Shesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe. My dear Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are full with 6 opulences. Because I forgot your omnipotence, I have mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I have become a great offender. But, my dear Lord, please know that I am a surrendered soul unto you, who are very affectionate to your devotees. Therefore, please excuse my impudence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy, may you now release me." Upon displaying this submissive attitude, the Yamuna was forgiven. And when she came nearby, Lord Balaram enjoyed the pleasure of swimming in her waters along with the gopis in the same way that an elephant enjoys himself along with his many she-elephants. After a long time, when Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace of gold, made of gold. After bathing in the Yamuna, Lord Balaram, dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planets. The river Yamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balaram. And all these branches of the Yamuna still glorify the omnipotence of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months. And time passed so quickly that all those nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the gopis and other inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. So this is the end of the 65th chapter. We only have 5 minutes left, Prabhu. So would anyone like to ask any question? I mean, we could, yeah. Go, yeah. There's no modern scientific kind of explanation for that. Although, the media in this country and in Europe and the US especially, which means also Australia, New Zealand, and probably Eastern Europe as well, is bombarding us with science, science, science. Everything has to be scientific. And what's the definition of science? Well, let me read it to you from the dictionary. An intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Okay? This is the noun, science. So, these are transcendental activities beyond modern science. And, life is a mystery. Scientists, by their experimentation and observation, they couldn't understand what is life. They have not been able to create life in their laboratories, even though they've spent billions and billions. You know that, I know that. But they're giving a post-dated check. We will someday tell you what is life. So, yeah, I mean, there are things we can't see that with our eyes, that the Yamuna is glorifying Krishna and Balaram. We can't see that scientifically. We accept it based on, our acceptance of Vedic literature as being the guiding light for Vedic religion. Now, there are people who follow Vedas who don't accept the Puranas. You might have heard of that, right? You know about that? Right. So they will also say like that, but all the great acharyas, Prabhupada's teaching was based on Guru Shishya Parampara, right? The disciplic succession. And all the great acharyas, even Shankaracharya, Ramanuja Madhva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimbarkacharya, and Vallabhacharya with Vishnu Swami, they all accepted the Puranas as being actual history books and not mythology, as the British Indologists who have studied Vedic literature, right? But they were all in the mode of ignorance, non-vegetarians, etc. You know what I mean? So there's a higher truth, there's transcendental truth, and it may not be manifest in front of our eyes, but these are, the Prabhupada said, windows to the spiritual world. So, you know, Yamuna is a transcendental personality who manifests as a river. But as it is mentioned in this chapter in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, that she appeared in person. Now, how is that possible? You see, so it's not scientific. It's transcendental. And there's a problem with, you know, human society declaring itself to be an authority but not having faith in Vedas. And you have to be careful that you do continue to have faith in Vedas. You know, like, unfortunately, there are some people who say we shouldn't follow the Varnashram system amongst us. But Varnashram was created by Krishna. And Prabhupada, in his purports in the 9th canto, this was at the end of his life. Clearly, if you read 9, 10, 50, 51 about Lord Ramachandra, one has to follow Varnashram in order to become a Vaishnava, Prabhupada wrote. So, yes, there is a system for living in the material world, and there are transcendental pastimes that are revealed in the 10th canto. Now, everyone in India may know these pastimes. Actually, nowadays it's changed because of modern education. They never hear the Bhagavatam, even though Bhagavat Saptas go on all over India. And Bhagavatam is read by many, many people, but society has changed. They don't give importance to these transcendental pastimes. Excuse me. Sure. Right. Right. So what I understand, either one of two things. They did go to another planet, but it wasn't the moon. The only proof of that is some rocks. So now, you know, a middle class person in the United States earns $30,000 or $40,000 a year, right? Lower middle class. Upper middle class, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That's not a lot of money if you consider how much they spent on all these moon shots, right? And would you, with that kind of a middle class income, spend even a fraction of that on some rocks? You wouldn't. What is the benefit to humanity in going to the moon and having a spaceship that they share with the Russians and the Chinese or whoever? You know, I don't know. And there are some people that say, well, it was just filmed in the desert, in a cave in Arizona or Nevada or wherever, and it's just a hoax. Now, who can say, you know? So Prabhupada definitely said that the moon we see in the sky is further away from us than the sun. So it's impossible to actually have gone there. So we trust Prabhupada, we trust Vedic literature. When one of Prabhupada's servants, I guess I'm going over time now, but I'll just try and finish this quickly. His name was Aravinda. He was his personal servant. This is before I joined ISKCON. I joined in 73, which is 48 years ago, and this is before that. So We're talking about something 50 years ago. And that's when, 1969 was when the so-called moon landing occurred. So this devotee, hearing Prabhupada said this, that the men didn't go to the moon, he became totally morose. And he left. He left ISKCON and he left Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, I can understand if he didn't believe me, but he didn't believe Vedic